Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. I'm Kel McDonald. I make comics you can read at kelmcdonald.com.
And I am Alina Pete, and I make comics you can read at alinapete.com or at weregeek.com.
Alina, what have you been up to lately?
I went to a friend's wedding over the weekend. It was very lovely. It was quite a lot of fun, and it had been a long time since I got to go get dressed up fancy and go anywhere. So that was very
Uh,
nice. I enjoyed that.
I got Onion Knight in the chat saying hi. Hi, Onion Knight.
Hey, Onion.
Um, I have, like usual, just been watching TV.
Good.
I watched That 90s Show.
How is that?
My opinion is that
Is it anything like
if
the
it wasn't
90s?
on Netflix, it would find its feet in its second season. But because it's on Netflix, it's not going to get a second season.
Yeah,
Um,
correct.
so, because basically it's like the new kids, um, they have like a unique dynamic, but they're still like the show is finding its feet. And the main problem with the show is that the kids' stories keep getting interrupted to have like, oh, Kelso showed up and said his catchphrases and now he's gonna leave.
Right. It's like, remember
And
this other show
it's
that you watched? It's like that, but not. It's not that.
but it's like, so the plot is supposed to be Eric and Donna's daughter is spending the summer with her grandparents, Red and Kitty.
Right.
And that um like, so Red and Kitty being there like works.
Because they're characters that
um
have followed the. You're like, yes, we know these characters. They're from the other series.
um and like, so them being around makes sense and is not a problem for the show. The problem is that like, um there's a hot boy that Eric and Donna's daughter meets, whose last name is Kelso, and when they find out his last name, they
Like Kelso's kid.
it's Kelso's son, but then Kelso just jumps into Red and Kitty's house for no reason and
Okay.
like says a bunch of his catchphrases, and then Mila Kunis shows up and says a bunch of Jackie's catchphrases, and it lets you know that like Kelso and Jackie have gotten married and divorced multiple times in the past 20 years, and then they say more of their catchphrases and then they leave. Um
Right.
uh
It's like,
or
hey,
like,
we're not regular
yeah,
actors on the show anymore, but we're here for the
we're here for
nostalgia.
5 minutes to suck time and energy away from the kids who should be the focus of the show.
Mm-hmm.
um and whenever the kids didn't have to stop what they were doing
To
for a
indulge in
cameo,
the nostalgia of the other shows.
yeah, like, whenever they didn't have to do that, the show was like,
Decent.
at least like there was the potential to be a better show next season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's that like I
Once
can
it's got its
see that the
footing.
kids, yeah, I can see the kids have chemistry, but they're still figuring it out. Um but yeah, it was just like too much time given to like the cast of that 70s show
Yeah.
who aren't main characters.
No.
um yeah, Onion Knight, when I say catchphrases, it's like Kelso shows up and he goes burn, and then he like says a bunch of like dumb things that are usually the things that Kelso says, and then
With
Jackie
just like
shows up
no
and she's like, "You're an
context.
idiot, Michael," and yells at him the same way she always does. Um,
Wasn't there an episode of
and
BoJack Horseman where they did like a reboot of BoJack's
yeah,
old show, and he had to come on and like it was just like all of the catchphrases that you've heard before. That's
yeah,
it. That's all they say.
yeah,
They're like, "How's the
yeah,
show going, BoJack?" And he's like, "Great. Everyone seems to love it."
yeah.
Yeah, it's TV. It's like that.
So
There.
Um,
We look fancy, but not happy about it.
so yeah, so it's just like when the kids got their own thing to do,
Then the show could
it was
actually
very
shine.
nice.
Yeah.
It was nice. And like I was like I could see this show developing into something good.
Right. It's got potential, but it
But
needs some room to breathe.
yeah, like there is a very funny bit where there's a gay kid in the group and he has an episode where he explains that he has a 37-point plan to eventually come out to his parents.
Gotcha.
And he is on step 3, which is coming out to people he knows he'll never see again. So and then you get like a little montage of him like accepting pizza from the pizza guy and going, I'm gay, and then closing the
Pizza
door.
guy's like,
And
okay.
yeah, so he's not even, he doesn't even have to stick around for their reaction.
Good, yeah.
And then he says he wants to move on to the next step, which is coming out to an adult that he sees on a regular basis, but if they react badly he can very easily never see them again.
Right. It's like, I need to
So
come up
he's
to
gonna
your
come out,
parents.
so he's gonna come out to Kitty specifically. He's
Good.
smart enough to not come out to Red.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that was pretty funny. And then there's a part where one of the kids is helping Kitty set up her computer and the internet for the first time. So
Oh,
you get
good.
like
Oh, some
the dial-up
GeoCities.
internet. Yeah, you
Hell
get the
yeah.
dial-up internet noise.
Good.
But also a funny joke is that like Red says that the government uses the computer to spy on them at the beginning of the episode, and then later on when the teens are having a fight, um, one of them says, "Penis, penis, 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 penis,"
Good.
and Kitty says, "Shh, the president can hear you,"
Good.
which is a very good like setup and payoff
For
for
that joke.
folks that don't know how the computer works. Yeah.
Excellent. A lot of nostalgia for that era of the internet.
Mm-hmm. So,
Good old
uh,
the Neopets and GeoCities and Angel Fire. Do you remember Angel Fire? God.
I did not have good internet as a kid
Mm.
until I was in high school, so I think I missed Angel Fire.
It was like a GeoCities.
Yeah.
These
I
were
am
free
aware of what it
websites.
is.
Yeah.
I don't have any memories that involve it.
Mm-hmm. I remember building my first website on GeoCities, and it had all the highlights. It had the fiery visitor counter, which was great. That was real classy. It didn't have any media music, but it did have a bunch of my really early pencil drawings, like shaded stuff. One of which was
Mm-hmm.
just like full on practically a trace from a book that I had where I changed it from a griffin to a dragon. And I was like, yeah, no one will ever know. It's good.
You did it.
Pulling some pulling some
You hid
90s
your
kids
secrets.
shenanigans. It's good.
You successfully filed off those serial
Yep,
numbers.
nobody could ever tell. I think I also
Um,
had a Pern Dragon on there.
Other stuff that I've been watching have been because I watched way too much TV as a kid. I am the perfect audience for there's this YouTuber who goes by the name Jose. His little icon's a blue jay.
Aw,
If you Google him, that's how you know you have the right Jose.
good.
But he was doing retrospectives on a bunch of different sitcoms. So I was watching a bunch of those,
Cool.
and a thing that like 'cause I was thinking like, "Oh, that '90s show could have been good, but it's not gonna get a second season, so
Mm,
it's doomed."
I don't want to get too into
Um,
it.
a thing that was interesting watching these, retrospectives is how many sitcoms that, like, quote, unquote, "changed television forever," or,
Mm-hmm.
like, that people remember past their air date, um, had really low ratings their first season.
Mm.
Um,
Like, do you remember which one specifically? Because like I'm trying to think
like,
of stuff from the
Seinfeld had
90s.
really low
Right.
Seinfeld had really low ratings when it in its first season, so did Cheers.
Right.
Um, obviously, Arrested Development had
Yeah.
low ratings the entire time it ran.
Yeah.
Um,
God, Cheers.
and
I remember watching that at Christmas. Last year there was like a Cheers marathon on when I was visiting with my grandma, and so we were watching it. I was like, yeah, it's been a good few years since I saw this particular show. But I've seen Ted Danson more
yeah,
recently.
yeah, like,
And
The Good Place is
I
good.
was trying to get my grandma into The Good Place. She was like, "What?
Yeah.
I have to go on Netflix though?" No.
Um, but yeah, so it's interesting that a lot of the big sitcoms didn't have um good ratings their first season.
Hmm.
Um and um so yeah, it's just
Even
interesting to
do you
like
remember? So the greatest sitcom, or the sitcom from the '90s that had the greatest impact on my psyche, was the Drew Carey Show. Not because the first couple seasons were any good, but because the like last season went off the fucking rails, as they were like, "Well, it's our last season anyway. Let's go hog wild and do whatever the
I
fuck we
remember
want."
watching a lot of the Drew Carey show.
Yeah.
Enough that when I watched Scrubs I recognized that Jordan
Oh
is from
yeah.
the Drew Carey show.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
And then they got like all of the guys from Whose Line Is It? Who would later be the regulars on Whose Line Is It were on that show.
yeah.
Yeah. There was the episode where they were all the Sims. It just took place in The Sims, which was a really fun one. There was the musicals episode, which was amazing.
There was a Sims episode of Malcolm in the Middle.
Yes, yes,
Um
there is.
yeah. Malcolm in the Middle was one of the few sitcoms that had this retrospective that, like, it seems like right out the gate was really popular.
Hmm.
Um, it seems like the longer Malcolm in the Middle was on, the less people were watching it.
Which is too bad, but I get it. It's very telling that the come on, brain. Um, WandaVision, the WandaVision '90s was represented basically by Malcolm in the Middle, because that was very
Those,
emblematic of the family-based sitcoms of the time. It was the best of them.
yeah, because they were all trying to contrast the '80s sitcoms of the time. There were happy family sitcoms in the '90s, but
For
they're all
sure.
the ones that like
They were still holdovers
people.
from the '80s,
But it's also those
thematically.
are well, like, they still happen, but they were the ones that people don't talk about as much, like
Yeah.
Home Improvement's in '90s,
Yes. That's a
and
very
that was
'90s
very much
show.
like a happy family sitcom
Yeah.
compared to, say,
And it
like
had
Malcolm in the
'90s
Middle.
heartthrob Jonathan Taylor Thomas,
Yes.
who
Um,
then was inexplicably cast as Simba.
yes. Um, and, this guy, this YouTuber, Jose, did do a retrospective on Home Improvement, and he pointed
Hmm.
out
Hmm.
that, like, out of the kids, he was the best actor, so it makes sense that more and more as the series went on, they focused on him.
Yeah. He was the kid who could actually act.
Yeah. Um, and then, like, Everybody Loves Raymond. I don't
I
fucking know anything
I
about
don't
every
love
anything
Raymond.
Loves
I never
Raymond
watched that one.
except for
I
the
didn't
fact that
like
it
it.
exists. Yeah.
Yeah.
It exists, and that's about all I know
I
about it.
don't give a shit about Raymond, is what it should have been called.
But it's those like ones that were the more like traditional nice family. I feel like those are gonna get forgotten first.
Yeah. I remember my mom being super into Roseanne, which is unfortunate because
Mhm.
obviously Roseanne's a huge piece of shit. But for the day, Roseanne was like the first of the not so happy family sitcoms, and it was like really
Mhm.
revolutionary. And I remember
Well, so
specifically there was an episode about them kind of being poor that really resonated with my family because we were like, shit, it do be like that.
what's interesting is one of the retrospectives that he went over was Married with Children.
Oh yeah, that not one I
And that
watched a
was
lot of.
apparently like the first dysfunctional family and sitcom. And that uh the guy who made it was basically saw Roseanne stand up, and then this other comedian who his whole bit was that he complained about his wife,
And
and
then
he was
merged
like,
that.
"What if?" And he was like, "What if these two were married to each other?" And that
Yeah,
was like the thing that became Married
that
with
was his
Children.
elevator pitch. It's
Um,
fascinating because like the
and
90s really kind of was the era of the dysfunctional family sitcom because that's when the
well,
Simpsons
so
started.
he actually so he goes over this. It's like the dysfunctional family sitcoms, at least in the U.S., were all on Fox.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
like you have your Married with Children's and your other dysfunctional families, but one station over is you're getting Full House
Yeah. Which is
and
like
you're
happy, shiny,
getting
clean.
yeah um and you're getting Boy Meets World
Yeah. Oh
and
God, Boy Meets World.
he did a retrospective on Boy Meets World too
Fascinating.
and um uh that was one that I liked a lot as a kid. And it was one things that he was going over in it is that Boy Meets World was like walking a fine line with Cory and Topanga of like how they're a fantasy that's really unrealistic, but at the same time are addressing how kind of unrealistic they are as a couple with
Hmm.
Sean. Um, and a thing that I think I always thought was interesting. So to bring it back to Roseanne, Roseanne's family kind of always had money trouble.
Yeah.
Um, and a thing that is sort of like Roseanne was one of the few dysfunctional families that wasn't on Fox. It was on ABC, and you know it's on ABC because there was an episode about them going to Disney World. Um, all all the
Right.
um, all the ABC sitcoms have episodes that are basically a long commercial for Disney World. But what
Yeah.
made Roseanne unique is since them being poor
Is
was
like
a
part of the.
key thing.
Yeah.
The episode is not actually about them going to Disneyland. It is about them saving up to go to Disneyland. And you only see Disneyland at the very end, right before the credits roll.
Gotcha.
Um, so,
Interesting.
yeah, because it was like Disneyland's fucking expensive.
Yeah. Super
But
is for a family like that, like it's almost unobtainable.
yeah, so
It's
it's
like distant
interesting that
dream.
like you have all these other shows like Full House has like a two-parter where they're at Disneyland,
Right. And it's like, oh,
and
happy, dreamy, yay, this is great.
Corey and Topanga get back together after their breakup at Disneyland.
Mm.
And um whereas like Roxanne, it's like, no, we gotta save all these dollars.
Yeah, it's real expensive, and we got a big family, and we want to bring everyone. We don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember distinctly that my grandma did not approve of the dysfunctional family sitcoms, and
Hmm.
that Simpsons was especially like, don't watch The Simpsons, it's awful. Oh God, it's a horrible, depraved show. And then
Yeah.
I had only heard that before I'd seen The Simpsons. When I actually sat down and watched the Simpsons episode, I was like, this is fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's 100% fine. It's what? What? I expected it to be far more depraved than this.
Um, well, yeah, The Simpsons was like definitely trying to comment on the um family sitcom thing.
Yeah.
And the YouTuber iPatchWolf has a great video about like
Eye
why The
Patch
Simpsons
Wolf.
went
Good.
downhill.
Good.
Um, and
Great
but the
name.
short version is that basically Simpsons went from skewering pop culture to
Being
it
pop
was
culture.
so pop culture
Yeah.
that like it couldn't skewer pop culture
No.
anymore.
It couldn't. It could no
Um,
longer punch up because it was the top.
yeah. Um, and then there's a fan comic that was going around a while ago,
Oh, is
like
it
a
that one
couple
with
of years
therapy?
ago. Yes,
I
the
love
therapy
that
one
one.
where Bobby Hill's the therapist. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like the kid from
It's Bart
uh
is dating
what's his
Chris
name?
from
Yeah,
Family
Family
Guy.
Guy. That's such a good comic.
And
I really love
um
the like it shows a dysfunctional but loving relationship between the two of them. And then the bit at the end when Bobby goes and calls his dad and is like, I can't reveal
because
anything, but like, thank
because
you.
Hank Hill,
Is a great
for all
dad.
his flaws,
Yeah,
is at least a good dad.
yeah.
Uh
Yeah, the bit where
he's a
Chris
man
like
with
has a breakdown because he realizes that they were like physically abusing his sister and it was
yeah.
just a joke. I was like, damn, yeah, yup. That was a good comic. I also really like the art style. The like aged up Bart Simpson is really good and gritty,
Yeah.
but like still recognizably the Simpsons style.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Um I remember talking to Nina Matsumoto because she did the Death Note parody for the Simpsons comics.
Oh yeah.
And drew all the anime Simpsons.
Nice.
And um she was telling us that the one thing with her anime versions of them all is she was told that they have to still have their overbite even though they're animes.
Interesting. The Simpsons overbite is part of the brand.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
That's what makes them the Simpsons.
Yeah.
Um but while doing all this like sitcom retrospective YouTube videos, what popped in my algorithm is why Netflix will never have a successful sitcom. And it is
Fascinating.
basically because they never give anything a chance to develop
No, and sitcoms need
past the first
more than one
season.
season.
And as mentioned, all the like groundbreaking sitcoms had very shitty first seasons.
Yeah.
Um,
That's the thing. It's almost something that doesn't fit with the Netflix streaming era way that people watch TV because a lot of those
mhm,
sitcoms weren't great in the first season. But if that's the only one that Fox is running and Fox is the channel that you have, it's the one that you watch
mhm.
because there was only so many channels
Well, it's
in the
also
90s.
by nature of sitcoms, you don't have to um watch the first season.
Yeah.
Um so yes, season 1 might not be good, but, like, you'd hear about it, and then you'd watch whatever was on Fox,
Exactly.
um, and so you're catching season 2 or season 3 where they have worked on most of figured out some of the
Yeah.
kinks,
And because you've heard, your friends at work talking about it or whatever, and now you're finally checking it out in time for
mhm.
season 3. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I've also, I've been listening to that Always Sunny podcast, um, where they are rewatching all the old episodes and, like, talking about how they make the show. Um, and that has the unique situation where the actors are also the showrunners and head writers.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're getting a little bit more insight than, like, the Scrubs retrospective podcast that's done by the 2 lead actors, and
Yeah.
um uh so um one thing that they talked about is they had shitty ratings to continue the pattern of shitty ratings in season 1.
As you do.
Um but what saved them from getting canceled is um they were so cheap to make,
Right.
um but also um they apparently had the highest retention rate of any show. So while not a lot of people were watching, if someone tuned in, they watched the whole episode.
Right.
Um
Because they're that kind of
and
TV where you can just kind of like jump in wherever and kind of get what's going on.
well, it's also Always Sunny if the premise of Always Sunny interests you.
Yeah.
Terrible people being awful.
Yeah.
Um You're probably only tuning in because that interests you, and that therefore you do probably wanna watch whatever nonsense, that they come up with.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, so they, like, while they maybe weren't getting the word out that much, the people who were hearing about it were the people that wanted to watch the show.
Yeah.
Um, or it was at least unique enough that people, like, kept watching and couldn't look away.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even if only in horrified silence, really, what's going to happen
Uh,
next?
the the episode of the podcast I just listened to is about them attempting to go on a road trip. Um, and they find out that Charlie Day's character has never eaten a pear before. So they pull over and go to a market and get him a pear to eat, and he eats the whole thing, including the core and the stem.
Mhm.
And he's like, "You didn't tell me not to eat those things." "Yes, I ate them. They were gross." And then Max says to him, like, "Did you even eat the sticker?" And Charlie Day ad libbed, "I eat stickers all the time." Like, and they kept that in the show, and they
Good.
just like, there are all these like ad libbed moments of ridiculous things that the characters do.
Excellent.
Um, and it just like, as they become more and more cartoon characters, um, uh,
Good.
like there's an episode where they're trying to solve the mystery of who pooped the bed, and they get like a lab analysis of the feces and things in the feces that make it inconclusive of whose poop it is. Wolf hair, pieces of credit card.
Okay.
I forget what the third thing is, but they are all not things you should eat.
They're like, who the
Um,
hell is this?
it's either Charlie Day's character or Danny DeVito's character, and so wolf hair and credit card bits are both inconclusive.
They're like, are you sure it was a human who ate all of this? Well, it does seem to have human genetic markers. Hmm. Hmm. I have concerns. I have concerns for this
Uh,
human.
they they also eat cat food on the regular
Yeah.
to go to bed.
Good. Sometimes you gotta eat some cat food, you know?
You know Kevin Wilson, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because he's making your site too.
Yeah. Also, I
Um,
just know him from like comics and stuff.
yeah. So
From the Van
Pacific Rim
Calf.
comes out, and everyone tells him he looks like Charlie Day. And I remember talking to him about this, because I had met him before Pacific Rim came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, well, I did think you looked like Charlie Day, but at the time, I did not want to be like, hey, you look like that guy on Always Sunny who's always huffing paint and eating cat food.
Good. Excellent. Hey, you look like just a mess. Just a mess of a
Yeah.
human. Or at least a fictional character.
Yeah.
Good. Do you have any celebrities people compare you to?
No.
Gotcha. I'm
You?
trying to remember, there's a lesbian comedian that everyone's like, oh my god, it's you. And I don't see the resemblance other than like short hair and kind of, generally petite.
Um,
I can't remember her name. Something Kitty, I think.
I
But
don't
I
know.
have a friend who, I don't know if you ever saw Weeds. The like shitty suburban
No.
mom decides to sell pot. Uh, there's a guy on there, the sexy brother on there is looks like a friend of mine, and so I watched an episode because I was curious just about like
Mhm.
why does the man on this poster across the street from my work look exactly like Quinn? And then I watched it and I was like, okay, that's enough of that show. Entitled Suburban Mom decides to sell pot. It was like the wine mom version of Breaking Bad. It was like, what if a mom was a single mom because her husband died, and so she had to start selling pot to put her kids through school. But it's kind of
Sounds
sassy
like,
and like girl boss instead of like a serious drama about like hubris and
I mean, to
awful
be
people.
fair, she's selling weed,
Yeah, exactly.
which
It's
is
not meth.
much better for you
Yeah,
than meth.
yeah.
Um,
Also, it was like
y-
in California when it was semi-legal, so it was like it's not
yeah.
actually illegal, sort of.
So, yeah, that's a much nicer story
Than full-on Breaking
uh,
Bad, where it's like, look, it's Arizona. This man
than
is
let's
is
make
already a horrible
meth
person.
and ruin people's lives and
Yeah, and become a incel icon. They sure love them some Walter White. He's so cool and tough.
yep. I hate Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I like it as a cinematography experience. Like it is very well produced and well made, and the writing is quite good for the kind of story it is. But the kind of story it is not for everyone, and a lot of people have taken it very wrong.
I just like I got pretty far in Breaking Bad. I
Hmm.
got to the part where Gus blows up.
Right.
Um, and when he blew up, my reaction was, I don't care about this. Actually, I
Good.
don't care about anything going on in this show.
Yeah.
I should stop watching this show.
Hmm.
Um, and um, it was sort of like Breaking Bad made me realize um, I don't find stuff involving guns very interesting.
Hmm.
Um, I also like I think like because people kept saying that it's, like, about the corruption of a man, but, like, I always thought he was a bad person from the get-go.
No, and that's
He's
the thing.
just
It
letting
was the whole point was that he was never a good person, and you're just kind of
Yeah,
finding that out.
um, and so, yeah, so it was kinda like I didn't care about anything that was going on, and,
Hmm.
like, yes, the cinematography's nice, but, like, there's a lot of shows with good cinematography now.
Yeah.
Um, and I was just left with a whole mess and not caring. Um,
I went and watched it all. It was the one of the first sort of like crime thrillery ones of that era that I watched. And so I was pretty into it for A, because it was set in Arizona and I used to live there for a while. So I was like,
mhm,
this is very familiar territory to me. Um, and then the psychological drama, which then later was repeated in many, many, many shows. Sometimes in a very funny way. I
and also I'm bitter that Mad Men kept losing to Breaking Bad because in
yeah,
my opinion, Mad Men's a better show.
yeah.
Um, in every sense of the word, I think Mad Men's a better show.
Hmm.
It's I don't know. I guess because people explode and get shot, and
I
that's
guess people like that.
why people think it's like more dramatic. But
Yeah.
like, I felt way more like of emotional gut punches because of what was going on in Mad Men than anything that happened in Breaking
Oh
Bad.
no, for sure. For sure. Like, with the exception of his wife, there's almost no really sympathetic characters in there. Like, even his brother-in-law, who's played as like, this guy's just a normal guy, is still like a cop who's kind of a shitty cop.
Yeah,
And like,
yeah,
you're like, yeah, I don't give a shit about this guy. If I had to be stuck in a room with this man, I would hate this dude.
yeah.
He's a shitbag.
Um,
And then there
and
was his wife
rewatch
who was just
BoJack.
like, hey, I thought I married a good man, and apparently I married a fucking monster, but yet
Yeah,
incels will still make me out to be the bad guy of this show, because I told him no.
and I am gonna check out Better Call Saul because from what I heard, it seems like that might be more
Yeah.
up my alley
Yeah, that one's a much more
because
human level show because, like, he's not a drug dealer or anything. He's just a lawyer who's kind of a shyster, but whatever.
well, it's also someone pointed out that Breaking Bad is about a man who keeps being given opportunities to be better and
Yes.
says, "No, I'm gonna double down on being shitty."
Yes.
Whereas
Better
Better
Call
Call
Saul.
Saul is about a guy who keeps trying to be better, but no one ever believes him when he's trying to be better.
Yes.
Um,
And in fact, people
and
who he think loves him sabotage him in like really cruel ways.
yeah, I've seen the first season, so I know
Yeah.
about like his brother
Mm-hmm.
fucking him over.
Yeah. I really like I know OCD is not the only thing his brother has, but I like the representation of OCD in the brother because like they take a lot of
Mhm,
the like overwhelming panic attacks triggered by specific inputs, and
mhm,
make that into a very visually appealing or at least visually understandable medium. I was like, that's good.
mhm.
That's cool. Well done.
The other thing is I think with Mavin, part of why Pete Campbell compels me so
Hmm.
is this is a thing that it didn't occur to me until after a couple of times watching it. Most of the time when you have your broken bad guy or character that we're
Hmm.
doing our examination of toxic masculinity and
True.
whatnot,
Hmm.
um, most of the time those guys are alcoholics
Yeah.
or do something that involving substance abuse that um so they have like plausible deniability when they do shit
Yes.
like
So it's like, oh, it wasn't
oh
really
he's
me, it was
drinking
this.
or
Yeah.
like and so Pete Campbell is one of the let's look at this terrible man who doesn't have a substance abuse issue.
Yeah, he's got no excuse for being the way he is. He is like that.
And I think that is also why in Mad Men, out of all the dudes, he is one of the ones that has sort of a breakthrough.
Mm,
Because so he's miserable and unhappy the whole show, but when the show starts, it's he's like junior lowest guy on the totem pole. And he keeps trying to prove himself to get promoted um and is getting praised, but not the rewards he wants,
mm-hmm.
um over and over again. And finally in like the fourth season, it becomes clear as the show goes on, it becomes increasingly clear that he is actually good at his job. So like him chasing this thing that he's good at, and then he does succeed, and he is like the most prominent person, like most successful person on the show in season 5,
Right.
but he's still not happy and he
Mm-hmm.
does not know why. Um and he has an affair with a lady who has severe depression, um so much so that she gets electric shock therapy.
Right. Right.
Um I have someone in my chat that's like, I finally caught your stream. I've been waiting for about a decade to say that I really enjoyed Sorcery 101.
Oh,
I
nice.
really like I'm glad that you like Sorcery 101. I learned a lot about making comics while doing it. Um, anyway, so Pete Campbell's thing in season 5 is he connects with this lady who has depression, and he's like, "Oh, this is a woman that finally understands me, and we can be together." Um, and her husband takes her to get electric shocks, so she doesn't remember him
Right.
after getting
And
it.
he's like, well,
Um, and he then realizes the reason why he was connecting with her so well is because he also has depression.
yeah. And it's like, oh, she
So
finally gets me. Oh, wait, it's because we have the same thing.
yeah, so and while it does take him a few seasons to figure out how to deal with that, because again, the 60s,
Yeah.
um he is one of the people in the show who gets a happy ending and might actually change
Right.
for the better.
Right.
And it's because, and I think it's partly because he doesn't have a substance abuse problem,
To
that he
overcome.
can do that, because like both Don Draper or BoJack Horseman or
Yeah.
all these other, look at this toxic masculinity guy,
Yeah.
um they're
They
like,
have
well,
that excuse. Yeah.
if I quit drinking, then I'll be better.
Yeah.
Not realizing that like this is a symptom, not a cause.
Mm-hmm. I was honestly
um
like the last season of BoJack I was really pleased with the writing because I really thought they were going to try to redemption arc him and uh they did in some ways, but they at the end were just like, you know what? There's some things you can't just apologize from and move on, and that's totally fine to
the
have
thing I
not have these people in your
also
life anymore.
the thing I also appreciate about BoJack is there's that episode one while he's away where you check in with all the people that he's dicked over.
Oh yeah.
And for the most part, they are people that he does not think about.
Yep.
Like, and in fact, I think the person who was the most traumatized by BoJack in all of BoJack Horseman, um, is Pete Repeat.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and he never thinks about Pete.
No.
Um,
Not never. 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 Never.
like he hardly thinks about Kelsey Jennings like
Mhm.
after um that one time. But again, like she just moved on and with her
Mhm.
career. Like
Mhm.
she was frustrated for a little while, but like her life wasn't too hijacked by him.
No.
Um and yes, Gina is going through some rough shit, but it's implied that like Gina did get that lead role because if you see the billboard in the last episode, it's for that movie.
Oh, is it?
Um yeah, and Gina is in a fiery costume, meaning that she got the lead, and Courtney Portney is in a blue icy costume.
Right.
So while they were talking about Courtney Portney, um
For the lead.
it kind of like implies that they cast her as the villain because they still like her as an actress,
Yeah.
but they did um use Gina. So whatever thing uh so her career isn't as hijacked by
Bojack and his bullshit.
PTSD from BoJack
Yeah.
as you would expect. Um there's also and Holly Hawk, like if she is more careful around drugs and alcohol,
Yeah.
you know, that's probably better for her considering the family history.
Exactly. But also she's
Um,
got like all of her dads to support her, so like
yeah. Um, so yeah, so and
she
then
came out
Penny,
decent
yeah,
out of that
yeah, and
experience.
then Penny, who he thinks about, in his defense with Penny, she was sober and did
Mhm.
make the first move.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that she also kind of moved past it. But like, yeah, Pete, the fact that it's like there are people he doesn't even realize that he fucked up their life,
Mhm.
um, like Pete, I think is a really nice touch.
Mhm.
Um,
And then having them show up at the end and him have to sort of like be confronted by some of that.
but he's never confronted by Pete Repeat.
No, no, he's not.
Yeah. So I think that that is yeah, good decisions on their part.
Mhm.
But also like I think the ending is also good because like it's also not too I think him dying not dying is a good choice
No, for sure.
because
It
him dying would be like he doesn't have to try to be a better person anymore.
exactly.
Um
Almost for him living is the greater tragedy because now he has to live with all of the things that he fucked up
yeah.
and that he can never
And
fix, and that's just life.
and I also think like um Todd's um and then you'll just try again and then you'll go back to rehab and you'll try again. It's a nice sort of mix of like forgiveness but not forgiveness, but also acknowledging that Hollywood as a machine is fucked up because people want to hire him again.
Yeah, and
Um
will, and like he kind of can't fail despite
yeah.
everything he's done. Like it's like, well, you're already famous, so like you'll be fine. But it's people that you
Yeah,
leave in your wake that won't be.
Ludarks in my chat is saying kind of like in the script on Hamilton, dying is easy, young man, living is harder. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so the Todd speech about turning the hokey pokey song into something more poignant, you turn yourself around and that's what it's all about. Like
Yeah.
is very fitting toward that ending.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's a good mix of like we're not saying everyone has to forgive him, but we're also acknowledging the one thing that is really hard on his part. Like it's good that he did have this punishment. Um Part of why Bojack can stew in his depression is because actually the actors that have the most money in Hollywood
Mm-hmm.
are people who are in those 90s sitcoms that are in syndication for fucking forever.
Yeah,
Um,
because they don't have to work anymore if they don't want to. Like, it's
yeah.
just they get money
Um,
forever.
and so him losing um money from syndication
Yeah,
is
is actually a big
it's a
deal.
good consequence. Even if people might not realize how big a consequence it is.
Yeah.
So yes, people want to hire him now, but he is gonna have to act more so and longer than uh
Well, and if he
other
pulls the
people.
shit that he did before, he can't recover from it
Yeah.
as easily.
Mhm. Um but I
God.
like a lot of the messages in BoJack. Like at the end of season 5, when uh Diane's boss is like you hold everyone to such a high standard, but like including yourself, but it's exhausting to live up to that high standard. Everyone makes mistakes. Um and that prompting Diane to like give BoJack some support to go to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
Um like but I like that whole like yeah, social justice stuff is important, but you do have to let people make mistakes and
Yeah. And you can't live other people's
forgive
lives for
them.
them. Like, you have to.
Yeah. Um and I think it's also good that like uh the thing that sticks with the most in BoJack is the when he tries to go running at the end of season 2
Oh
and
yeah,
falls
that was
over and
so
the monkey
poignant.
says you have to do it every day, but that's the hard part. It gets easier, but you have to do it every day. That's the
That's the
hard
hard
part.
part. Yeah.
And he's talking about running, but it's also about being a better person.
Mm-hmm. And recovery. Like,
Yeah,
recovery from alcoholism. You're gonna have hard days. You're gonna have, like, days where it's overwhelming. You're gonna have failures, but like, you just, every day you don't is one more
a
success,
success.
and it'll eventually get easier. And honestly, like, that's the same thing about grief too, because they really tied up Bojack's alcoholism and his grief and his trauma all into one big ball of trauma,
Yeah,
like it is, like it does in real life. And that was really a very poignant writing
yeah,
moment. Like, that was all summarized in that monkey coming across him, trying
yeah.
and being like, "Yeah, it hurts and it sucks, but you just keep going,
And
and it
and
will get easier."
also fun detail about that monkey to tie it back to grief. Or maybe not so fun. Is in that season that's there are flashbacks and you see the monkey running
Hmm.
outside of Bojack's house. So that's but he has a wife with him or a lady
Oh,
that you assume
right,
is a wife because they
right.
have like matching jogging outfits.
Yeah,
Um so
and she's no longer there.
yeah, and she's not there in the present day shots.
Interesting.
So that monkey at one day had to get up and run
Hmm.
without his wife slash running partner.
Yep. Interesting.
I love BoJack.
It's a good show. It's one that took me a long time to watch because I would watch a little bit of it and then I'm like, okay, whew, I need a recovery from this. And then I'd come back and watch again, especially the last couple seasons, which were really heavy.
And then Lardox is in my chat. It really isn't isolated. Like we just carry part of it with us all the time. We carry everything. We are all at times. Just we aren't conscious at the same time. And they're saying they couldn't watch BoJack. That is fair. I once told someone
Yeah,
BoJack is
it's a
great
lot.
because it's about existential um, depression. Like it's about existential despair, but it's funny.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
uh, and Lardox is saying because there's that one episode I watched was about his mom having dementia, and
Yeah.
dementia really, really scares me. That episode, I was talking to someone else about how the stuff that I respond to the most in media is all things that can only be done in the medium that it's choosing. And so that
Mm.
episode has to be animated and
Yeah.
also needs to be part of a TV show where you're getting a lot of small stories because a lot of these details are hinted at or fleshing out things um from earlier in the show.
Mhm.
Uh and it's yeah. And then Mad Men does a lot of the like also I think has to be a TV show cuz they do a lot with the episodic nature of the show but also like calling back to episodes very subtly, but also it needs to be its own episode. And then it's like the music and the visuals all coming together
Right,
to
right.
reinforce a theme. The example I tell people when they ask me to explain why I like Mad Men without spoilers is there is an episode where the point is that Dawn is starting to be out of touch, and the younger generation of ad people are gonna like surpass him.
Mhm.
Um, and the episode starts with them making an ad that is a riff off A Hard Day's Night. Um, and they have to find someone that sounds like the Beatles because you cannot afford to have a Beatles song in
Nope.
your commercial.
Nope.
Um, and Dawn's hot young wife um recommend is like I just got their new album, I can give it to you to listen to so you can like be inspired and know what to look for. And Don very arrogantly says I know what the Beatles sound like. And then the episode happens
Yeah.
and um you get all this like Don is being out of touch
Mhm.
and an old man.
And does not actually know
Um,
what the Beatles sound like.
and then at the end of the episode, his wife has left him the Beatles' newest album, which is Revolver.
Right.
And then he puts on I forget what the name of the song is, but it starts with something more psychedelic and to prove the point that Dawn, thinking it was going thinking the Beatles only sound like I Want to Hold Your Hand or
Yeah.
He Loves You,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that, not actually realizing that the Beatles do not sound like that anymore.
Yeah.
Um,
So he's now hired the wrong
well, it's more just him being out
sound.
of touch.
Yeah.
They end the episode not knowing who's gonna do the music.
Mhm.
Um, and Dawn turns the music off in disgust.
Right.
Uh, So it's using and so like that thematic thing only works if you have earlier season Dawn to compare it to,
Mhm.
so you can see that he's losing his touch.
Right.
Um, it also you need the visuals because you need to be able to see the ads that he's working on.
Mhm.
But that thing of what do the Beatles sound like doesn't work unless they actually play the Beatles.
Right.
Um, so you need the image, the sound, but also the like that it's a short story commenting on previous short stories. So uh, Mad Men and BoJack are my favorite shows for those reasons.
I'm trying to think of ways. I know you haven't seen Severance, right?
I have seen
Oh, you
Severance.
have seen Severance. Oh man.
Yeah.
God,
I watched it
fuck, that
like when
show
it
is
was
so good.
airing, so and it was torture because
Show's so
I
good.
needed the next episode immediately.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
I don't know that I could have waited because like I watched it all in like a weekend.
uh
And I was only gonna watch like a
Ludar
couple episodes, but then I was like, nope, no, I need to watch this
Yep,
entire thing because I need answers.
you need it right now.
Uh-huh.
Ludarx,
Uh-huh.
I highly recommend Mad Men. Obviously, since I just talked about it for a bunch of reasons. It might be hard for you to watch. There is no episode that focuses on dementia. But in the later seasons, there is a character whose mother has dementia. That it is kind of they use it for some pretty dark jokes.
I mean,
Um,
that show needs multiple content warnings for multiple things. Like
yeah.
I've got trauma
I
from
mean,
watching BoJack Horseman. It's heavy.
well, I was talking about Mad Men.
Oh, Mad Men, yeah.
Yeah, Pete Campbell's mom in the last few seasons has dementia.
Right.
Um, but it's not serious, like it hasn't progressed that far yet.
Mm,
Um, but she's clearly like just starting to lose it, and this is why I say they
right.
get the dark humor out of it.
Right.
Is there's an episode where Pete Campbell in the later seasons, Pete exhaustedly crashes on his couch, and his mom, who's living with him at the time, tells him, "Pete, they just shot that poor Kennedy boy." And Pete very groggily says, "No, mom, that was 6 years ago." Pete not realizing that Robert Kennedy just got shot.
Right. Oh man. Whew.
uh, and then there's a part where he lies to his mom about what day it is to get her to not leave the house. Every
Right.
day when he goes to work, he tells her it's St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
Um,
Because she
because she's
won't go out.
racist against Irish people, so she won't go
Gotcha.
outside on St. Patrick's Day. So yeah, he's just like it's St. Patrick's Day. You don't leave the house, and he's like maybe telling her
Right.
that every day.
Just gaslight your mom so that she stays in the house and doesn't get into trouble, which, you're trying to help. She's
but
got dementia.
she's an old racist, so
Yeah. Yeah,
no, Lardex, you're fine. Because I just haven't adjusted the moderation settings. Lidarx, Pete is my favorite character because he is an asshole, and he he is maybe the worst person on Mad Men, but is also the least racist. Because they want you to feel conflicted about him. His episodes are um usually about how he is a ball of self-loathing and depression. Um and he is mad that like bigotry is getting in the way of capitalism.
yeah. Mhm.
Like one of his episodes is him trying to get a client to sell TVs to black people. And when they're upset that he suggested that, he is just baffled because why would you let your racism get in the way of making money? That
Make a
doesn't make
sale though.
sense.
Make a sale.
Yeah. If Mad Men took place today, Pete would be all about putting rainbows on everything in
Oh
June.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And he'd be
Uh,
a homophobe, but like gotta
yeah,
gotta sell.
yeah. Uh, he's but if you do watch Mad Men, there is mostly anti-Semitism because since the
Mhm.
creator, the showrunner of Mad Men is Jewish, I think
Right.
he felt more comfortable
With
going
that.
hard on the anti-Semitism
Yeah, yeah.
than other era appropriate
Mhm.
isms.
He's like, "So I don't have enough black writers in the room to go on to some of that sort of racism, but I
It's
could do
it's
anti-Semitism."
it's not necessarily that. I think so it's partly like he wanted to comment that like this crust white world is so detached from the civil rights movement that
Mhm.
whenever it comes up it completely blindsides them.
Right, right, right. That's kind of
So
fun actually as a
yeah.
statement.
So like um and because it's in New York, they're making jokes about the South being racist, even
Mhm.
though they're being racist.
Yes.
Like Betty Draper's friend at a party is like commenting on the riots in the South is like, well, you know what they say about the South? It isn't 1963, it's 1863.
Mhm.
And they all have a good laugh. And in the background,
Yep,
the maid that Betty has, like the black maid, is like
of
cleaning up
course.
after them. Like,
Uh-huh. And I'm sure rolling her eyes. I can't see her.
no, because that would get her fired.
Exactly. But inwardly. Inwardly.
Yeah. Like the only time she kind of calls out any racist things from her employer is Betty's dad um uh says that someone stole his $5
Mm.
and she is doing her spends basically the whole day helping him look for it, and he's like, I didn't say you took it, and she's like, yeah, not yet, you didn't.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And and then he accidentally calls her by the name of his maid because he's an old man.
Right.
And
Right.
she's like, for the last time, my name is not Viola.
Right.
And he asks if she knows Viola, and he's like, no, we don't all know each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's very much like she can successfully talk back to Betty's dad because since he is not 100% mentally, um he
Yeah.
might not remember it, and if he does remember it, it's minor enough that like can get brushed aside.
Mhm.
um but obviously there's 60s sexism.
Oh no, for sure.
um
Like you've told me before
but
about some of the
yeah,
episodes about like trying to get birth control in the 60s and
yeah,
then, this and that happening and yeah.
yeah. And then uh
Oh, the 60s.
yeah. So I know some like older people who didn't want to watch Mad Men because they're like, I already lived through this. I don't need this again.
Right.
Uh, yeah, I lived through this type of sexism. I don't need
Mhm.
more of it.
I don't need to be reminded of how shitty it was.
Uh, but like I said, they go the hardest. He goes the hardest on anti-Semitism in the first
Mhm.
um season because he, as a Jewish man, he feels more comfortable like pointing that out.
Well, and it's still relevant.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, like
Very
there's a part
unfortunately so.
where
Jesus Christ.
someone there's a part where some slurs against Jewish people are casually thrown around.
Right.
Um then the first episode has them getting their first Jewish client,
Mm.
and they're frantically trying to find a Jewish employee to talk them through how to talk to this Jewish lady. Um, and then they serve shrimp cocktails at the meeting.
Ah, good.
Mhm.
They're a big client. You want to serve them something fancy, right? And shrimp cocktails are all the
Yeah,
rage.
yeah.
Yeah, good.
And then they don't understand why she puts her cigarette out in it. Lardox is saying, I mean, shrimp is amazing.
Hmm.
Um, it is. Also, one of the actors in Mad Men went to high school with Spike.
Really?
She does not remember him,
Huh.
but I was looking up like because he played one of my favorite characters, so I was doing the like, what else has this guy been in? Maybe I'll
Right,
check it
yeah.
out. And then I reading his biography was like said that he went to such and such high school in Potomac, Maryland, and
You're
I
like,
did them.
hey.
And I was like, Spike, is this your high school? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, you went to high school with Ginsburg. And she's like, I do not remember him because he is like literally either like the year before or same year as her.
Oh, wow.
Um
Wow.
uh
But, like, I couldn't name you all of the people who went in my year at my high school.
yeah, like I don't blame her for not remembering.
No.
I just think it was funny that like we're sitting here like
Talking about Mad Men.
dissecting his character on Mad Men and
You're like, yo, Spike, you went to school with this guy.
yeah, you went to school with him.
What? I don't know if I went to school with anyone famous now, but I know that they were super fond of telling us that one of the English classrooms that we still had English in was Joni Mitchell's classroom. That was her homeroom back when she went to the school I went to.
Um I live near the mental hospital that Girl Interrupted takes place in.
Good. Excellent.
So the part where they sneak out for ice cream in Girl Interrupted, I have been to that ice cream place.
Good.
As far as famous people I went to high school with, I don't think anyone. I might be the most famous person in my graduating class.
Right, right.
And I do know. Apparently, my brother's graduating class. One of his classmates was in that Hulu movie Fire Island.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Wasn't that the one that was about the Fire Festival? Or am I thinking a
no,
different movie?
Fire Island is the gay retelling of
Oh, yeah, that one's great.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So he had a couple of lines in it, but is not
Nice.
like a main character. Um, and then my brother showed me a picture of this guy, and I'm like, well, he looks like he would be in Fire Island
Good.
because it's full of half naked hot guys.
Yeah. That's the whole point.
Ludarks, have you read any of The City Between yet? If you haven't, you should. Because obviously Sorcery 101 is done and over with, and you should be reading my new stuff as well.
Oh, are you gonna announce that we're doing the thing before Emerald City?
Uh, I made it's kellmcdonald.com. So it's all on my website.
Cool.
Everything I do is on my website now. Including I moved Sorcery 101 over there. Um, so I made an ad for it today. I was going to announce it in my newsletter first and then
Do it.
start posting on social media once a week
Nice.
to get cuz we're going to do the live reading and then I'm going to take reader questions.
Good.
So far I've only gotten one reader question.
So yeah, exciting news on that coming up
Yeah,
soon.
I'll say it now here. We're going to do a live reading of Fame Misfortune, the first story in City Between the Saturday before Emerald City,
Hell
which
yeah.
is February 25th.
I get to be one of the voices, which is gonna be super fun.
Yes, you get to be
Marnie.
the lady that wants to jump Rebecca's bones.
Good.
Not at first, but
No.
like
Yeah. I come
next
around.
time I do a next time I do a story about those two, they'll be dating.
Good. Excellent. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for subscribing. I hope that live reading goes well. It would be fun, and I would like to do it, I don't know, every couple of months.
Yeah. I've often thought about trying to organize some sort of live reading, not of Weregeek, because that's like way too long, but like of one of my short story projects or something like that. Because I have a thing where I can do all the voice editing and software stuff, but I cannot hear my own voice. So I cannot do, like, I was like, it would be really nice to do like a reading of one of my short stories and then have that as like a patron exclusive or something people can tune into. But I cannot do sound editing on my own voice without driving myself batty.
See, that's why I'm doing it live because then I don't gotta edit it. It's
No,
just the mistakes will happen,
that's great.
and they'll just be live forever.
That's part of the charm. That's part of the charm.
Yeah. I do wonder like how much it would cost to produce like a audio play type version of a comic.
It's a lot of sound editing because you have to do a bunch of takes and then
Mhm.
edit all down into the actual final version, which is,
Yeah.
not an inconsiderable amount of work. For this animation project that's coming up, I'm getting paid a very nice amount, which is why I didn't say no, even though they're not giving me nearly enough time for an animated project. Because they're like, hey, animate us like 40 seconds in like a month. I'm like, that's
Yeah.
fucking ridiculous, but I will do it. Even if I have to put some of my other projects on the back burner and also really bust my ass. It's also limited animation. They don't want like full animation. They're like, no, it's fine.
That's
Like
good.
if it's like static images with a pan or like limited animation, like the bird is flapping, but the rest of the stuff in the panel isn't. So I can do lots of tricks to reduce my workload.
It's good. Did you watch the Interview with a Vampire TV show?
I did not, but I desperately want to.
It's very good.
I've heard that, and I have seen some of the clips from it. Yeah, was a big fan of that novel back in the day.
Good shit. Good shit.
Yep.
I don't know if they're gonna be powered by nanobots.
Probably not.
I mean, if they are, we won't find out till like
No,
season 15. But
exactly.
at which point it would probably be
That
canceled.
I also was not a fan of those books. That was the like very much the midichlorians of the interview with a
Oh,
vampire.
I think that like sudden reveal that it's all nanomachines is fucking wild.
Right.
I
Oh,
love
Jesus
that.
Christ. What book was it I was reading? There was a book I was reading where at the very like almost in the last chapter they're like, "Hey, wait, these vampires that have like enslaved Earth and stuff, fucking they're from space. They're space vampires. We're gonna like fly around with the space vampires for a bit," and then it ends and you're like, where the fuck did that come from?"
Um,
It was real weird.
did you finish Iron Widow?
I did. It's amazing.
Thoughts on the ending?
I see what you mean about it being kind of an abrupt ending, because they're like, "Yo, we're going to address all of this in the next book," which I'm now very excited for.
Yeah.
But like, you're like, "Holy shit! Okay, what?" I also had not up to that point connected the name. Like, obviously, I had. It's Wu Zetian.
Uh,
The main character's name is Wu Zetian,
yeah.
which is the name of the
Yeah.
Empress. And I thought it was just like a nod. It's like, oh, cool. Her like she was, that's what you name your character because that's a like an icon of yours. That's great. And I was like, oh no, shit, that's actually what they're doing with the story. Holy crap. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because I was
Like
just like, oh,
so
you name your badass character after like the most badass of the empresses. Love it. Good. That's a
yeah.
nice nod to the culture and stuff. Rad.
Have you watched her YouTube?
I have not.
So I found her YouTube because she did a like breakdown of how accurate the Asian representation in Avatar: Last Airbender is.
Oh,
Like
fascinating.
season by season.
Cool.
And so she's done that with a few other things. Like she did it with both the 90s animated Mulan and then the new Disney Mulan. And then like in Kung Fu Panda, she also talks about like how Kung Fu Panda uses Chinese references.
Right, right.
And then she also has done a few videos that explain Chinese history.
Cool.
One of which is a whole video that explains the rise and fall of that empress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I remember there was a whole museum exhibition on her when I went to this one museum in Beijing when I was in China visiting my grandma. She was teaching English there, and it was really fascinating. They had a bunch of those like obviously all the tour guides spoke some English, but they didn't have a lot of the information. But there was those tapes that you could borrow that were like all in English. So I was like following along with the Mandarin tour, but like listening to my own version of it, which was very neat.
Cool.
Yeah, it was a cool trip.
But yeah, so like the reveal about the aliens at the end.
Yeah.
I kind of wish that they had saved that reveal for the beginning of book 2.
Yeah, I
because it
get.
kind of feels like it's revealed and then we don't deal with it.
Yeah. I totally get that. And I feel like there's like I know why they were revealed because they're like, right, we need a reason for her to then storm back and take the capital. But like she was definitely angry enough she could have done that on her own.
Yeah, she was angry enough that they could have just done that.
Yeah.
So I kind of wish that like that would be the inciting incident reveal in book 2.
Well, and it makes sense too. Like now that you're the Empress, you're gonna get all this information that you didn't have access to before. And it's like, hey, so here's why we can't just do that thing that you want us to do, because fucking aliens. And you're like,
yeah.
Okay, now we have to deal with this. There's certain books, and I'm not accusing this one of it, but it's definitely a thing I've noticed. There's certain books where you can tell that the author was just done. or that they had a deadline coming up that they're like, fuck it, I'll just, whatever this book is, I'll just write a thing, wrap it up, and we'll jump back to it in the next book.
Well, this is also her first book, I believe. So
Yeah,
a lot of the problems I had with the book, I feel like are very first writer problems.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I'm trying to remember which book I read recently that had that problem where I was just like, this book ended very, very quickly and abruptly, and I can definitely tell that the author was just done writing it. And I mean,
well,
no shade on that. I totally get, perfect is the enemy of done.
mhm.
And it's much better to have a finished book just out there. But also, you're like, as a
Yeah.
reader, you're sitting there going like, okay, though, but like, yeah, you wrapped everything up, but like, really hurriedly. I could have used more.
Um, then I she said that originally the book was twice as long.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
And I
I
can
feel
definitely
like it's less
see.
that she was done and more like this doesn't fit.
Yeah,
So
this is gonna get pushed to the next book, and it's now a two-parter. Because otherwise, it would have been like a
uh
thousand
because
page
it's
book.
YA, it's probably a trilogy.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about that with my book that I'm writing. It's supposed to be a YA, and I'm at just about the 50,000 word mark, which is almost a novel. Like 60,000 words is like real novel territory. But I'm like, oh, it's
Mhm.
going to be longer than this. Shit, I need to I need to work on wrapping this up because they don't like publishing very long YAs, especially not as a first book.
No.
I also need to work on just getting it done, obviously, because there's been a couple things where like really good um, agents have been like, "Hey, looking for to represent Indigenous people, especially working on YA. Where's send me your finished manuscripts?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
"Don't quite have one yet. Give me a few months."
It's hard.
It is.
Um
And
the other day,
oh, go ahead.
the other day I had to explain to the Anime Kid Discord
Good.
what Snow Crash is.
Good.
And I was like, okay, well, um you should all read it because you're here talking about cyberpunk things you like.
Yeah.
Um, and it's silly that you don't know Snow Crash when you're all into cyberpunk. I have to go to the bathroom. I can still hear you.
Gotcha. Oh,
So
Snow
you can
Crash.
continue that thought
Let me
before
just
I
talk about Snow
started
Crash and
talking.
my feelings on
Yeah,
that
yeah.
chaotic, delightful mess, I guess. Uh, Snow Crash was the first Neil Stephenson I read, and boy, that's a ride. He packed a lot into that book. Uh, Originally, he's like, I'm gonna name my hero protagonist, and I was like, Are you fucking kidding me, Neil? Are you fucking kidding me? And then he had a couple other really like nudge nudge wink wink kind of names in there where he was like, I'm being clever, and it's like, are you, Neil? Are you, or are you just being a dumbass? Um, which, I think a little of both. Um, but there was a point where I was like comparing the
I
last
just
couple
want to go on
years.
record and say that the name Hero Protagonist is an excellent name for a cyber samurai katana guy.
It's pretty funny, to be honest. But like, it also shows that he was sort of like, hey, at the viewer, like it's like I'm aware of the genre tropes and I'm like poking fun at them. Uh, but there was a point where I was talking about how, yeah, the world's become like a real fucking cyberpunk novel recently, and not like a William Gibson one, not like a sensible, stylish William Gibson. We're in the middle of like full on Neil Stephenson here because we got like Reality Winner running around, and there was another name that I was like, this is like straight out of a Stevenson novel.
Um,
The world has decided on Neil Stephenson's naming conventions for reality, and I hate it.
yeah. I also had to tell them about so the reason why we got on Snow Crash, I was thinking back to the thing, is because um I asked them, a couple of them, what is a story that you immediately were interested in and then you picked it up and were immediately let down?
Yeah.
And someone was talking about a sci-fi thing that they thought was going to be talking about language and
Mm.
how the way language like interacts with um and changes how you see the world.
Right, right.
Um and so uh I forget what thing they were talking about, but um basically they wanted Arrival. So they were Arrival when Arrival
Right.
finally came out, they got what
They
they
were like,
wanted.
hey, this is the movie I
Um
wanted. This is what I want
yeah.
sci-fi to talk about.
Um uh Lidark is saying The Land by Alan Kong.
Hmm.
But he ended up loving the next 6 books for the most part. So for me, it's a comic called Animosity.
Huh.
And the comic pitch, which is what got me really excited to read it,
Mm-hmm.
is all animals on the face of the earth suddenly gain the level of sentience that humans have and can talk to humans. Um, and
Not gonna lie, that
um,
sounds super rad. I would read that.
it does sound
That
super
sounds
rad,
real good.
which is why I went to buy the first issue, and it had it had 3 really good double page spreads
Yeah.
and then was immediately stupid afterwards.
Oh
Um,
no.
the 6 double page spreads are a bunch of animals
Yeah.
before they get sentience, like the
Yeah.
moment before, the moment they get it, and then the moment right after.
Right.
So you have a polar bear killing a seal,
Yeah.
and then the polar bear pauses for a moment, and then on the third one he says, "Oh God, what have I done?"
Okay.
Then there is a dog getting put down, while its owner cries in the background,
Yeah.
um, and the dog after gaining sentience turns to its owner and says, "You're doing the right thing. I am in a lot of pain."
Right.
There's a cow about to be killed. The cow says, "Please don't do this. I want to live."
Yeah.
Um, there's a hamster eating her own babies. Um,
She's
she
like, I don't give a
pauses when
shit.
she gets sentient, then she continues to eat her own babies,
Yeah.
and the baby hamsters run away saying, "She's a monster.
Good.
Run." And then the last one, which is my personal favorite,
Yeah.
is a guy is working at his computer, and next to him is a terrarium with his pet iguana in it.
Good.
Um, and it's kind of copy pasted the moment that's the lizard getting sentience. Um, and then the moment afterwards is the iguana saying to the computer guy, as he has a shocked expression, is, "Sarah has been cheating on you for months, and I will not stay silent any longer." Um, So clearly, like, that guy's girlfriend has been, like, fucking in their shared apartment with someone else.
And the iguana is
And
upset about it.
yeah, the iguana is like, I will not stand for this. You
What?
must know, person that feeds me.
Fascinating. I wouldn't
Um,
expect an iguana to care.
um, Obviously, the owner's taking great care of that iguana
Oh,
if the
clearly.
iguana is on the side of
Yeah, yeah.
revealing this betrayal.
And understands that it's a betrayal.
Yeah. Um,
That's the thing. That's the thing,
Now,
though. Like, I imagine, even if animals were to suddenly gain human level sentience, they would have dramatically different priorities than us. They are not human. An
um,
iguana wouldn't care about infidelity because, like, they're like, yeah, of course, you mate with as many things as you can. Come on.
so this leads up to why I was ultimately disappointed. Um,
Because they're just writing the animals as though they were just people.
no, the animals then decide that they're going to fight all the humans for some
Mm-hmm.
reason.
For some reason.
Um, and I'm just
Because
like,
every comic has to come down to just fighting, just
so it's
punches.
basically a zombie book, but with animals instead of zombies.
Yeah, that sounds about. Yep.
And
That
I
sounds about what I
was
expected.
immediately like, that
Fuck
happened, and I
this.
was immediately like, oh,
This is
I don't care
disappointing.
about any of this now.
No.
Um, and um, so we get so those three double page spreads are the only, like, we're going to explore this idea about what animals think of the people in their lives.
Right.
Because it makes sense for the cow to be like, I want to live. It
Yeah.
makes sense. But afterwards, why does a tiger in the zoo feel the need to fight humans?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
fed on a regular basis.
It's got to be
Um,
like, this is a
eh,
sweet deal. Please continue to worship me, humans. More of that meat.
and um, the why do squirrels care about what humans are doing?
Yeah, they would not. They would
Like,
not give the first
yeah,
shit.
I am in that double page spread. I am skeptical of a polar bear feeling bad for having killed a seal.
Oh, hell yeah.
But maybe it's that one polar bear.
Yeah,
Because we do have to contrast it, the hamster lady that continues to eat her baby.
that's great.
Um, and uh, so it's just like, what why do the big fighty fight? Like,
Exactly.
you
Because
had an
that's what
interesting
comic books
concept
are like.
here.
Gotta be fight,
Yeah.
fight. I'm reminded. I read a short story by Stephen R. Donald. It's called like Animal Lover, and it's this really interesting setting where the guy is a cyborg, but it's in this like 80s sort of way where he's kind of got really shitty technology, but it's still integrated with his
Mhm.
body. Um, and he's like a government super soldier spy kind of guy who's been sent out to deal with this series of disappearances of some fairly rich and powerful people. So he goes out and he gets to this island, and it's very island of Dr. Moreau, where it's like there's animals here and they've all been cybernetically enhanced as well. Um, some of them have like weird arms or like guns for arms, etc.
Mhm.
Some of them have been uplifted a little bit, so they're more intelligent than just your average rabbit, but they're still intrinsically animals. So there's this great scene where there's these like dogs that have had human hands grafted onto them that have been trained how to set mines, like to dig and set mines throughout this
Huh.
field, but they're still fundamentally dogs. So they're like, they've got these backpacks on them and they're running around and playing and like tussling with each other. And then at one point they sort of sniff around, dig a little hole with their little human hands, and then like put this mine in it. And they're like still kind of like half tussling and wrestling with the other guy or with the other dog. And this guy's hidden in the grass watching them and it's like, hey, I'm about to die because like if these dogs smell me, they will raise the alarm and all of the other terrifying animals out there with like gun arms will come and get me. but like they're all just animals, and it's so sick that this doctor would use this incredible technology just to fuck up animals.
Have you read We Three?
No.
Um, it's about a cat, dog, and a rabbit
Oh,
that
I've
have
seen
been,
ads for that one. Yeah.
yeah. I
Cool.
haven't actually read it, but I heard people be like, "Oh, don't read this if you don't want to read about animals getting hurt."
Right.
Um, but like one of the things that are interesting is so like the way the animals all talk. So they've all been given the power of speech via whatever implants, but they're
Yeah.
still animals. So the rabbit always thinks in like one word sentences,
Mm-hmm.
like food, run.
Yeah.
Um and the and so, but then the dog and the cat also have different speech patterns. Um so I thought that was interesting. I
That's
haven't
cool.
actually read the whole story. But
No,
I
I
think
do like
like
the
that,
premise.
yeah. Um Also, you talking about dogs being given cybernetic human hands. Have you seen the short horror movie Cat with Hands?
No.
Just Google it. It's on YouTube. It's tremendously creepy. It's a
Good.
puppet cat that has human hands.
Oh, very good.
Um,
Very good.
and it's killing people to collect enough body parts to pretend to be human.
Good. That is my kind of terrifying horror. I don't know if I've told you about one of my favorite cryptids.
Hmm.
But do you know the story of Talipo?
Yes.
God, I don't know why that one scares me so much, but it terrifies me and I love it. Just don't, if you're a hunter, don't fuck with animals. Don't waste
But
their
yeah,
meat. Don't they'll come get you. They'll get you real good.
Cat with Hands is like definitely hey, we were in the uncanny valley, so we're gonna like
Let's lean into
lean
that
into
shit.
that to be creepy.
Good.
Because it's a very realistic cat that then
Good.
has like
Human
puppet human
hands.
hands. Um, but it's still
Good.
doing cat things like licking its human hand
Yes.
to
Oh,
wash its
so
head.
creepy. I love it.
Like, yeah. Um, it's very good.
That needs to be a little bit lower. I'm drawing bunk beds.
Those are hard.
They are. I'm drawing log bunk beds, which is, another twist.
No, don't get animosity. You'll only just be let down.
The fact that
Like,
you're gonna do a thing
seriously,
about animals, but you're not gonna like actually try to make them seem or feel like animals. You're
just
like, just all of the animals turn into people all of a sudden.
go um I might have said the girl's name wrong if you are looking it up just for the iguana. Like I just know that it was the iguana immediately rats out the girlfriend for cheating. I just used Sarah as a filler name because um
It's
but
very good.
I love that the lizard is like, I'm on the side of justice.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Good. You just need to know.
yeah. Um, but the to bring it back to the like media that is only in the medium that it's in,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, I have been watching um the people discuss the Last of Us TV show. I haven't actually watched it yet.
Oh, same. I really want to watch it though after this past week. Everyone's been really raving about how moving it was.
Well, the thing is like, so when The Last of Us first came out,
Yep.
and everyone was praising it for its writing, um, I was in the minority because I was like, this, um, it's, I can get this from a TV show, like any TV show.
Yeah.
It's
And
this is a
I'm
video
not
game trying
super,
to be a TV show, like,
yeah.
and
I'm
so
also
I
not
don't think
super
the
into
writing
zombie
is,
fiction. Like,
yeah. Well, I just thought like the writing wasn't that special,
mm,
because it's just mimicking TV, and like TV's already done that, and some of them have done it better.
right.
Um, so I always kind of thought like this is kind of dumb that it's getting all this praise for trying to be a medium that it's not.
Hmm.
Um,
But now it's a TV show. For real. Now it's a
yep.
real boy.
Now it's everything it wanted to be.
Hmm.
Um, and Liana Mormont is Ellie.
I know there's been a lot of creeps online outing themselves because they're like, I don't like her. She's not as fuckable as the game character. And you're like, dude, the game character is still a child. What? What? Stop being
Yep.
creepy. Stop it.
Lernac saying I can see where you're coming from. Well, what I mean is like the stuff it was getting praised for, like
When it
the
was a video
pathos
game.
going on
Yeah.
when it's a video game is like there are plenty of TV shows and movies that are about gruff older man and his surrogate daughter um against the world.
Yep.
Um
It's a way a lot of men have been dealing with becoming fathers and being like, oh shit,
yeah,
I see women
and
differently now because I have a daughter. Which I'm very sorry that toxic masculinity means that you haven't been able to explore your identity as a man
yeah, and so Lurdoch,
until
like,
now. I'm very sorry for
you
that.
saying that the relationship had a strong impact on you, um, but the um father-child relationship, there's a lot of media that is working on that level, um, and I think is getting uh that kind of like pathos that the game was also providing. And so it's also stuff that like, oh, here's a game about morality, but like you have to make specific choices to move the story forward. So it's like, why even have it be interactive
Mm.
um, if you are forcing the character to only do one way? Um,
Was there no branching
and
paths? I thought that it was actually possible to play from different morality points.
uh, I don't remember. Um, I just know that that was also a complaint for the second one.
Mm.
Like, H Bomber guys joke about the second one where it's like, oh, is it bad to kill someone with a knife? So it's kind of like, At least in the second one, like I remember the examples in the second one just because it's more recent. But it's stuff like you can't stop Ellie from her destructive path. You can't actually make some of these decisions.
For her. Yeah.
Because the story needs you to follow through on her revenge. She can see how destructive revenge is, and
Right. Right, because the
um,
second one's you're playing as Ellie, right?
for the first half, and then you play as Abby, and then you play as Ellie again.
Okay.
So you play as Ellie to get revenge on the person that killed Joel
Right.
at the beginning of the game,
Yeah.
and then you get up to her, and so it's trying to build you up with all this rage while you play as Ellie, and then you have to play as Abby. Like you stop and
Right.
rewind. It's a fight that you have to lose,
Right.
which is another thing that um, is
Is rough.
kind of forcing you to take a specific path.
Right.
So then you play as Abby, and you find out Abby killed Joel because um, her parents are in the hospital at the end of the first game. Um, and so revenge makes for a vicious cycle and all that.
Right. Right.
Um, and then you get to know her, and then you play the fight that you have to lose again, but
Right.
this time you have to win because you're Abby, which is why they forced you to lose last time.
Right.
Um, and then you get to play as Ellie again, and you get the flash forward of her great nice life. And then she throws it all away to
Get revenge.
get back on Revenge Street.
Mm-hmm.
And
Nightmare on Revenge Street.
yeah, so it's just like you can't actually affect the story all that much, at
Mm.
least in 2. And I forget the stuff in 1, but I remember being like, this all sounds like things that movie and TV have been doing for years. Um, and I don't know, I feel like that you end up watching the game more than you play it with games like that. Um, so I was talking to the anime kids on like, so what are video games where it has to be a video game?
Right.
Um, because there's stuff like Pathologic has to be a video game because the whole point of the experience is you deciding who lives or who dies
Mm-hmm.
while futilely fighting a plague. Um, and you only have so much time in the game. Um, and you couldn't really make Pathologic into a TV show while staying faithful to it.
Yeah.
Um, you would just end up with a really boring TV show
Yep.
because of all the walking.
There's certain games that are like very easy for that because it's like this the whole point of this is not the story, it's the experience of playing the game. So stuff like Stardew Valley, like it's got a story, sure,
Yeah,
but the story is very thin. um
yeah,
it's the like meditative experience of playing the game that is
right.
so
So
attractive
like
to most
before
players and to me for sure.
before finding out about Pathologic, I was kind of the impression of the writing doesn't really matter as long as it's fun to play. And like Stardew Valley, like its writing is not necessarily
No.
breathtaking.
Yeah.
Um, it's the point of the game is to grow those crops and have that
Hmm.
farm. But Pathologic is something that the writing is really important, but
But the
also playing the
experience is
game.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, like
The experience supports the story and vice versa.
mm-hmm.
That's really
And
where you
then
want to be.
and Disco Elysium's kind of the same way.
Yeah, no, totally.
Um,
I love discovering all the little lore bits as you're running around the world, but also just some of the weird, inexplicable shit. God. some of the twists in there really got me.
But yeah,
I love that game.
yeah, it's a good game. I need to finish it.
Real good game.
I
I
haven't
need
had
another
time.
playthrough. I want to play through it different this time.
How'd you play the first time?
Real chaotic. I was a art cop, which was fun, or art critic cop.
That's probably what I'm gonna. That's probably falls under what my first run is too. Art critic
Yeah.
cop.
And it took me a really long time to get any kind of designation at all because I was answering just like really like chaotically randomly. I was just like, this
Oh,
is what I
I
want. This is what I feel like in this moment.
there's that part where the guy asks you, "What are you, some type of feminist?" And
Yeah.
if you say yes, I'm a feminist,
Yeah.
you can get the feminist cop almost like immediately right after you say that.
Good. You're like, good, yes, that's what I am. Hello.
And and uh
I love when you get the option to be like, I'm a very experimental cop. There's no one else like me. It's very good.
when you're talking to the lady that owns the boat,
Oh God.
you can tell her that you put vodka in the soup for the union guys. And she's like, "Why are you telling me this?" And Kim like aggravatedly sighs and is like, he has decided that he's going to tell everyone everything because that's how I've been playing. And he goes, I don't, and she's like, is that helpful to the investigation?
No.
And he's like, he very tactfully says no. He goes, it
Yeah.
is a unique way of investigating.
I love Kim as a character. I love a lot of his dialogue. Where he's just like, I am dealing with a madman, but he's also a colleague, so I will be respectful. But like, on what the fuck are you doing, sir? Sir. Very good. Also, huge fan of how Ron Chan draws Kim.
Did you see Ron Chan's Halloween costume?
Yes. It's exceedingly good.
Very good.
For those of you who have not seen it, he dressed as Inspector Kim.
Yes.
It was
And
perfect. It was 100% like he walked out of a video game. It was very good.
mhm.
I remember having the slight spoilers here, but I remember having the "oh fuck, that was me, wasn't it?" moment at about the same
Mhm.
character time as the character was, and I was like, "Oh shit, that was well done."
It's 10.
Yeah,
I
let's
have to get
cuddle.
up early tomorrow to go to the gym.
Sounds
So
good.
thanks everyone for watching. Um,
We'll see
and I
y'all.
hope that you all have a good evening. I will stream tomorrow night. Probably I'll start a little bit earlier than usual. But yeah.
Yeah,
Once again, you can find all my stuff at kelmcdonald.com.
cool. And you can find all my stuff at alenapete.com or at weargeek.com, and I will be streaming again on Friday on my channel. We're gonna do Trash Heroes.
All right.
Come watch our
Good
stupid
night.
D&D characters who climb directly out of the trash.
All right.
Talk
Good
to you
night,
later.
everyone. Later.
Bye bye.